Good afternoon and welcome to Naturally Chicago's webinar, Hiring for Growth, Building Your Team. I'm happy to introduce my colleague, Greg Killer, Senior Strategist of Naturally Chicago, who will moderate the program.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our panel. This is a topic that for me, I think a lot about. Both my prior life hire at Frontera, hiring the right team for us was critically important. And, as I'm working with Naturally Chicago, it's probably the number one question that I get from brands: how to hire, when to hire, how to find the right people. So this has really been a top priority for me for a while. And I'm really excited about the wonderful panel that we have here to speak. Erica with Globowl, Teresa with Sugar Bliss, and Frank with Creative Alignments to help us out on this journey. So, if I could, Erica, why don't you start off and if you could please introduce yourself, your company, kind of let the people know a little bit about you and your brand.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming and thanks for having me. My name's Erica Levin and I am the founder of Globowl. I'm a three-time founder, but this is my first time in the CPG space. I've been doing it for about 4 years. Globowl is an internationally inspired baby and toddler food company, introducing babies to flavors from around the world, texture to encourage oral motor development, and early allergens as recommended now by everybody, actually. And we're all in glass jars to avoid micro and nanoplastics. And we're sold in stores all over the country and have a strong focus this year on e-commerce. Is that good, Greg?
Fantastic.
Any more?
No, it's great. Teresa, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Teresa Ging. I'm the CEO and founder of Sugar Bliss. We are based in Chicago. I've been in business for almost 18 years. We have a retail bakery in downtown Chicago at the Palmer House Hilton, where we do cupcakes, cake pops, French macaroons, over 200 different SKUs. In 2022, I launched a CPG brand, which is the cookies behind us. We're now in retailers like Myers, Mariano's, Walgreens, Macy's. And then about a couple years ago, I launched into food service. So we basically took our packaged cookies and our corporate catering products and scaled it into multi-channels such as the Bears, higher education, colleges, the airports, and hotels. So my focus this year is actually food service.
Fantastic. Frank.
Hi, everybody. My name is Frank Milianti. I'm a partner with Creative Alignments. We are a global recruiting firm at heart, albeit we do things a little bit differently with our platform. We work with our clients by the hour versus a fee-based platform, very steeped in broader consumer, especially for emerging brands, and really passionate about helping build brands and their teams. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. So, Teresa, early, we had a pre-call last week, and one of the things you mentioned was like one of these, wow, a great idea. You brought up a really important idea around setting the foundation before you move forward. If you could explain that a little bit to us so that we can get everybody in line with setting the proper foundation for growth.
Yeah. I've been in business for 18 years. I have a retail store, so I've always had employees, at least 10. But it's also not only building a strong internal team, you definitely have to have a strong external team. And what is that? So I was once at a conference and the speaker said, as business owners, you never want to go to jail, but if you go to jail, you must have bail. And I was like, what is he talking about? So, every business should have core advisors early on. And this is B for banker, A for accountant, I for insurance, and L for lawyer. So, for bankers, I have multiple relationships with several banks in Chicago, and, they will help you support with capital, line of credit as you scale. An accountant will help you, look at your numbers, your margins, your profitability, taxes. Insurance, that's really important, especially if you have a CPG brand. Make sure you have recall insurance. We have a brick and mortar store, so property insurance. You never want to have something unexpected derail your entire business. So, and then lawyer, we have two types of lawyers. We have a business lawyer that helps with the contracts. And then we also have a trademark lawyer. So I always tell people make sure your brand is trademarked or not already trademarked, but you want to have this external team to help you so that you don't, have any mistakes as you grow.
Yeah, it's such a you think about growing your business, and so often we get so busy in the day to day that we don't think about some of these foundational things. I just think it was such a great place to start. So, moving on. So, as a solo founder or a small team, how do you start, or when do you start to think about hiring new members?
Would you like me to
Yes,
answer?
please. Yeah, yeah.
So that's a great question and something I think we all think about as solo founders to start. At the very beginning, and I've had different experiences, but with Globowl and a CPG product, it's a complicated business, right? So we are now dealing with inventory, production, manufacturing, supply chain, not to mention the branding and the marketing and all the stuff that comes after. So for me, when logistically it became too complicated because we needed a manufacturer, then we needed a 3PL, we needed a way of shipping, and it was just taking too much of my time versus being focused on what I could do to grow the brand or do more revenue generating activity. That's when I decided I need some assistance. And I did not hire a full-time employee. I'm actually surrounded every day by a group of independent consultants, and they focus on all sorts of different things from graphic design to Shopify to marketing and Amazon and things like that. And of course, manufacturing is outsourced, as is many of the operational stuff. So I think it's important that, and to note also, is you're not going to be communicating with everyone all the time. There are periods of time where I'm, very focused on design work, if I'm doing our labels or creating a new product. There's times that we're hyper focused on revenue generation, which should be all the time, but I mean like very deep into the marketing and the advertising and things like that. So you'll go through phases like this where you're dealing with certain independent contractors more than others. But it's been a great thing for me to have, kind of a smorgasbord of consultants around me. And when I did hire my first employee, it was also a consultant situation. It was set up as not as an employee, but somebody that was doing a certain amount of hours of work for me, and it just made more sense for my company to do it that way. But that person was helping substantially with all things logistics and operations, because that's the part I wanted to take off my plate so I can focus on growth.
Right. Teresa, you've kind of have a different go-to-market strategy around the bakery, and then how are you thinking about your growth?
Yeah, I mean, having a retail store and then CPG is very different. The retail store, we have back of the house, front of the house. My back of the house consists of an executive chef and then her team. Front of the house, there's a store manager and her team that help with customers. And then we've gone back and forth. We've used agencies to hire for social media marketing. But I actually have hired someone more junior, but that is full time, that does everything from social media marketing. She went to a pop-up today. She's done demos. What I will say is that, for me, we cross train. So my whole team, not the front of the house know how to bake, but a lot of the back of the house can help customers. So that's been important. On the CPG front, that's a different way. When I started dabbling in that, I did hire a fractional COO to kind of help us work a couple hours. He's been on our team for now 3 years. So over the time, we've just gradually increased the hours to the now that he's pretty much full time. I would say that a lot of times I found that founders kind of wait too long to hire that next person because they want to save money. But it honestly has helped us not miss opportunities. I don't think that we would have gotten into food service because my time is stretched. As founders, we can't do everything. So hiring that next person, and I think on a fractional standpoint, that was helpful because I didn't know if I needed that full time and also the salary. So but I think as it's a constant theme, and I've been doing this for 18 years, is that we should be working on our business, not in our business. And when we work on our business, we can help grow our businesses and, create the sales and partnerships. So that's kind of my tidbit.
Got it.
Can I add can I add something there?
Please.
Teresa, great. I did not mention that, and I did the same thing. I think having a fractional person to fill in the holes that you may need filled is phenomenal. And I did that too, is with a fractional CFO, because that's the part where I felt I needed to fill that hole. And the other thing was, I had mentioned I'm a multi-time founder, but not knowing the CPG world, I put together a very strong board of advisors. And I know that that's not hiring per se, but it is assistance, and it is really important to rely on people that know the industry and can support you along the way.
Right. Frank, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'll add just a couple other things to that, and maybe not from the brand side, right? As a third party, if you will. And to Teresa's point, timing couldn't be, I think more important. But I think when founders think about their first key hires, it's important, when they know that they're the constraint, whether it's decisions, it's emails, it's ops fires, right? Everything kind of flows through you as the founder. It's important to then start thinking about where do we start growing, and whether that's fractional, consultants, broker, full time. That's a really good kind of key point. So, your revenue is growing, but maybe your margin or velocity is stalling because of that. So when most of your time is really spent just doing that one thing that you're good at, it's a pretty good clue to say, hey, let's look at some other staff.
Yeah, from the going back to my Frontier years with this, it's really, really difficult because you've got a team and you're doing well and you're starting to get there, and you're just cresting to the point where you can see some black numbers. You're seeing profitability, but you're working 90 hours a week and you're not seeing your family, you're not getting out and exercising. But you know that you've got to get some more people on the team, and it's really a difficult decision when to hire. Typically what I see, what I've seen, and Frank, you can help me on this, is people hire a little bit too late. They're, you're at the point of total distress, and you're bringing in some people to help you out. It's really a hard thing to do, but you do need to have that team around you to help you get there. Teresa, when you were going, what were those first hires for you? Where did you need the help? What roles did you need most help with?
Yeah, I kind of looked at my business as a whole, and I honestly, this person kind of reached out to me on LinkedIn. I was like, I kind of do need someone. So I don't know, it just kind of fell there. And the person that is on my team as our COO, has I want to say he's a unicorn, actually. Um, he's been a pastry chef, so he understands the bakery operations. He has weekly meetings with my managers, so he helps with the operations side. He has worked at a large retailer in the bakery, so he understands, like, when we go to market with retailers. He's also worked for a major chocolate company on the co-manufacturer, so he does talk to any of our co-manufacturing. And so again, I couldn't ask more for, and that's the three areas that we're in, and so, um, so that was my first hire as operational. And I would say that, being a founder, I was in finance, so I had the financial background, and I think, as founders, we're very good salespeople. So I looked at, I found the person that, like, filled in the gap, not the strength. You know what I mean? So I was like, I need someone that can do more ops for me. And so that was kind of my first hire.
Frank, what do you see in this? Do you see
Yeah.
people moving towards specialized or generalized? And is it based upon the size and scope of the business?
Yeah, it's a bit all of the above. I think to Teresa's point there, your first hire should really cover your blind spot, not clone your strengths, right? It's such an important thoughts. I mean, if a founder is brand driven, right, you need someone who's the opposite of that. If they're sales driven, you need more ops or supply chain, right? If they're whatever the case may be, it's really finding those other elements that are going to help the founder kind of move the business forward. So I think that's an important element. And as I think about functions and specific roles, again, that's going to be case by case for each brand in each business and what they're good at and where they need that support and where they're growing. I think some pretty common trigger points when you think about those first roles, especially within food and bev, are you in multiple channels now, right? Are you doing more than just retail or more than just D2C? You've landed maybe some real key retail doors, and you need more execution than hustle, right? So it's the kind of those things that help you think about where do I need to get that next leader in house? Where do they fit in from a function perspective? And so it's really just, again, I'm kind of going backwards a little bit about those first hires, but I think it's really important. It's really about buying back the founder's time and having them focus on what they're really good at, and then hiring people who are really great executionally to move that business forward.
Eric, anything else to add on that?
Just when I look at people to hire, bring on, generally hiring, full time to fill a void, it's also about the person. Most people at this stage of a startup, I said 4 years, but I've only been selling in store for 2. At this stage, we're all doing everything. You're doing everything from packing boxes, to running the financials. And so when I hired my first person, she came to me also, Teresa, like a blind outreach. She's like, I'm going to work for you. This is like the dream company. This is what I would build if I could build. And she's very young. So I was a little concerned with that, but the best part was that passion. And she turned out to be the greatest thing that ever happened and could do everything, right? Everyone has a specialty, but she would demo and she would go to events and she would also be running our entire supply chain. So it's hiring that person, not just for the role, but the person that fits with you, fits with the role, and can really help you with almost anything, at least at this stage of a business.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Teresa.
no, I was definitely going to add that, you know, I definitely think owning a retail store for this many years has helped me guide on like when I start hiring leadership, because culture and accountability and consistency, that person has to understand your vision, understand your culture. I think a lot of times when I do let go of someone, it's just not the right fit. And you spend a lot of time training them, learning the business. And so I've probably hired over 100 people over the last 18 years. And I mean, right now, when I look at my employees, like my pastry chef has been with me for 8 years. She came as a pastry chef, but again, she goes to me at distributor shows. If I leave the booth, she can sell my CPG cookies. I mean, she helped test the recipes, very involved and growing that person. So again, I see her in multiple roles in my company as we grow. So I think culture is also a very big point in like who your next person, they need to understand your culture. If they don't, they're not going to represent your brand out there.
Yeah, going back a little bit to my Frontera days, one of the things that was very important, you guys have both mentioned it, is you need to hire a toolkit for your first couple hires. They need to be able to do all kinds of different things. As we grew our business, we hired more and more specialized, especially around the area of finance. First was had to be able to do some finance. Um, you know, another step, another point, just to reemphasize is Manny and he was marketing, I was a sales guy. And basically, when you get a marketing and a sales guy, there's nothing that can't be done. We're going to sell $50 million more next year. Absolutely. We can do this. We needed a finance guy to ground us a little bit in some of the realities of business. And so that's kind of where we knowingly spent more money getting the right finance person so that we could, have that balance. But you just need a couple of, somebody who can do a little bit of everything. And then as you grow, perhaps you you get a little bit more specialized. Um, Frank, when do you see, people coming to you saying, "Hey, I need to hire a top-notch like vice president of operations or marketing or sales or something like that?"
Yeah, it's a good question. And again, we see it at all different stages, right? And there's certainly the brands who are solo founders who are like, I want to hire heads of across all functions, right? And they're in a position to do that based on just where they're at. But a lot of it does depend on how they want to scale and where they're at. So when you think about, we were talking a little bit about it earlier, I think Erica, you've used fractional, right, quite a bit to this point. And, I think who you hire and what you hire really depends on just again where you're at in your stage of growth. So us as a firm, we spend a lot of time hiring full-time people most of the time. We do some fractional, but it's where is the work going to be most consistent and daily, right? And core to who you are, and where institutional knowledge really matters. So it's really thinking about when do you need to make those hires and where do you put them in that bucket. So um, all of this is kind of intertwined, right? We're talking about a lot of the same things, and when to make a hire and how to do that, and in what bucket are they operating in? But you got to think through all of those things: full time, contractor, brokerage, and is it are you hiring for seasonal help? Are you hiring for full time support when that work is consistent? But as it relates to functional, it really is so specific to the business and where they're playing in that moment.
So, Erica, as you've been using more contract, is there a time in your, thought process 5 years out? You're a long-term planner, we know that,
Yeah.
that you're thinking, okay, when I get to this stage, maybe it's time for me to bring that in-house so that I can get 100% of her time.
Yes, that's a great question. And yes, I do think about the future a lot. I would say at this early of a stage, again, I'm much younger in the business than Teresa, and I hope to be at 18 years one day. But right now, to me, unlike my other businesses, like CPG is a very cash intensive business, right? We have inventory, we have a lot of hard costs. And so until I'm in a place where I feel very, very comfortable with cash flow and that we're not going to have a couple down months, because it is a roller coaster at the beginning. You're still getting your grip. You don't even know what your distributor costs are going to be until you get that first, charge back list and all of the stuff, right? So to me, I will make that decision when I have what I would consider consistent cash flow that can cover things, cover everything that's needed, and then some. And I'm not there yet in, full transparency. So I don't want to bring somebody on, full-time W-2 employee just in case, you never know. And it's not me being self-deprecating. It is me being reasonable and realistic. Greg, you said you need your CFO to bring you down to earth a little. I try to do that. I think it comes from experience. I try to do that myself, and I do get that from my fractional CFO and everyone in between. But I think you have to have a healthy dose of realism, and you have to have a pretty good understanding of when you're going to be in a very comfortable cash flow position. Please tell me there is a future with a comfortable cash flow position. But that's when I would feel comfortable.
I'm not going to say that out loud right now.
Yeah, I know. Is
Teresa,
that, I mean, that's where I stand on that.
Teresa, you've done both. You've got to have more consistent employees around your bakery outlet, your store. How do you think through full-time, part-time, fractional?
Yeah, I mean, if I look at the CPG part of the business, I'm exactly with Erica. Like, you don't know when a distributor or a retailer comes, when a retailer does not want, like, it is a very rocky cash flow, and it's a lot of, I mean, again, it's another webinar, but I mean, again, Eric and I are the founders and we've created these great products, but we pay a co-man, we pay a distributor, we pay a broker, we pay the retailer, the demo people, and then we're left, with the penny, and then we need to hire someone that can do whatever we need, sales or whatever. So it is a different animal. Whereas like having the retail store, now again, I've had the retail store for many, many years, but I mean, when I first started, I was, the manager, the dishwasher, the delivery person sometimes, whatever, you did everything. And end up hiring more people. Again, because we have a retail store, we have to have more permanent people. And you know, like, again, I have a lot of salary people on leadership, but we also have a steady cash flow. It's all about cash flow. I mean, we have a steady cash flow, steady holidays. Thank God Valentine's, Mardi Gras, Lunar New Year are the next week. Then we got St. Patrick's, Mother's Day. So we constantly have holidays that help with our cash flow. But um, the retail store, we have full-time, people and part-time, but they are W-2. The CPG, again, it's more contractors, consultants. So it is two different animals. So I've kind of dabbled in both.
Great. Hey, if Bob was sitting next to me, he'd be kicking me in the shin saying, "You didn't request that if you have questions, put them in the Q&A feature in the Zoom." So I'm going to say that now, and I'll apologize to Bob later for not bringing that up.
You're
Um,
forgiven, Greg.
Thank you. Frank, how can recruiters help? Why would we want to use recruiters as we're looking to hire? Once we've made the decision to hire full-time people, why would we want to use a recruiter?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a lot of founders and people who hire ask that question. A lot of it buys your time back to focus on the things that you're good at, and for us to focus on what we're good at, right? It's pretty simplistic in that facet, but we have a deep understanding within broader food and beverage. I mean, our firm specifically, especially in the emerging spaces. And there's a lot of experience in doing that, and there's a lot of networking and a lot of connections that our team has made as part of that. So it's kind of it's our backyard, so we know people and we know how to kind of get to people who might have the answers. But I think it's also important in thinking about strategy. How do you go about doing that, and why is it important? And we really help brands think about what's important to them. So it depends on the stage, of course, you're in, but a lot of earlier stage businesses, you know, you kind of want to hire individuals regardless of the function who scaled from a bit of chaos and not from perfection, right? So they've kind of been through this, done that. So looking at individuals who might be one or two stages ahead of you and not maybe necessarily big CPG. Um, and I think you kind of want to, you don't want to look at the individuals who are like, at my last company, we had a team for that, right? I mean, you want to get individuals who can adapt and work in really scrappy environments, and we're able to assess kind of that individual. And I think short of that, there's so much more that goes into it. It's culture. It's how someone fits in someone's team. It's behavioral based interviewing. Tell me what you've done in the past that might help predict how you operate for Erica or Teresa, as an example. So there's a lot of ways. It's a long-winded, answer there for you, but I think about when you think about earlier hires, which I know a lot of this is around, and the importance of that. They're there to really stabilize, I think, kind of where you're at and help you grow from where you're at, and help unlock that growth, right? They're not the answer that's going to lock you to 50 million right away, but they're really important hires as it points to building your business.
Now, I do want to add some Frontier context again. And we used recruiters to hire all of our core people. And it was critical for us because, Frank, to your point, we didn't have the time. We couldn't afford to go out and do the first three interviews, or to, go through 500, you post something on LinkedIn. Somebody was mentioning me the other day, they posted something and they've got like 400 resumes to go through. Like, holy Christmas, how the heck are we going to get
Mhm.
through all that? The time to be able to do that, and you know, uh, we worked with a recruiter that we got to know very well, who got to know us, and I'm sure, Frank, that's how you work with your team as well. So they knew us. Um, and you've talked a couple times about people you've had long relationships, so they kind of knew the culture. They knew the people who might be able to fit, and they saved us such a tremendous amount of time that, in some instances, depending on where you are, recruiters are, I think, a very good, for us, it was a great thing. We would not have been able to do some of the things we did without somebody helping us find that, whittle it down and find that. Um, you know, but we're at the end of the day, if we're hiring people, we still need to interview. So, Erica, any practical tips for interviewing people? Or it sounded like you wanted to
I
chime
was
in on the prior one, so
well,
go back.
I could do both. I'll quickly, I was going to say on the prior one is I went through the Techstars program through this company, which was funny because my other two companies were tech and I didn't actually do it. But for this, I really wanted a foundational understanding of the business and I wanted to go back to basics. One thing I learned there was about focus. And I think Frank mentioned it and you mentioned it, Greg, about pulling in a recruiter because you need to stay focused, And when I look at even this year, if I am not full-time focused on growing e-commerce and laser focused on that, there's just too many distractions and too many things that take you away from actually making money. If your business doesn't make money, you don't have a business going for it. So, there were little tips and tricks just through that process. It's like, you can turn on do not disturb when you work, right? Like little things like that take a lot of time and they may not feel that way. And same with hiring, right? That takes a lot of time. So if someone like Frank can call the list and pull the best of the best that would fit, that's all those hours are going towards, building the business and growing it. In terms of interviewing and things like that, I prefer, but I'm a pretty casual person. I prefer like an informal setting. So when I was meeting the woman that I hired first, and even in other situations, we'll get a cup of coffee. And to me, seeing somebody in a normal environment says a lot about who they are as a person. And I hire, I think I mentioned it, by the person. Yeah. I mean, they want them to fill a role, but like the person needs to fit. The person needs to, yes, fit. And so you can tell a lot about a person by the way that they behave in public. And also like they let their guard down a little bit too. And so I think you are able to see a little bit more of the real them versus somebody, sitting at a desk like this. And I think that's important to me. So I'll just chime in with that. But that I think it really does showcase a person a little bit better when they're in more of a familiar and comfortable environment.
Great.
Frank is right. Has things to say about that. I don't know.
I was just gonna
No,
say after
go
this
ahead, Teresa.
webinar, I have at 4 o'clock. I have a interviewing someone over Zoom on a catering and sales director. So, it's funny. Like I'm like still in the interview. I mean, um, I was like, oh, maybe I should talk to Frank about this role too, to save me some time. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Erica that we go through several rounds of interviewing. Again, this position posted, there's over 200 resumes. Some of them I'm like, I don't even know if you even know what we do, like it's like what's the interest level. But yeah, I mean, we interview them a Zoom call. I like them. I bring them in. They meet the entire team. I mean, you would be surprised of someone who is a counter associate would be like, this person said this, it is ultimate down to fit and culture, because it takes several months to train them. And if they're not a good fit, you just ate 3 months, and, what, as founders, Eric and I are in growth mode now, and we're like, we need to stay focused. And I'm trying to, even though I have some set people in place like an ops, I am looking to build, a couple years ago, I was like, I need to hire a catering sales director, not just some sales. So that's been on my list. And so that's like Q1 so that they can hire a sales team. And another thing I was going to talk about, like brokers. So, we hired a broker last February. So we had made some, roads into retailers, and I decided to hire a broker. And I told myself I'd give it 1 year to see where they got us. And, ultimately, they got us in some retailers, some on the West Coast, but not really much in the Midwest. I got us Mariano's and Myers, And it just, we are a premium cookie. We use sustainable packaging. We give back a portion of the proceeds to support women and minority entrepreneurs. We use real chocolate, real butter, and so it just made me realize hiring the broker allowed me to realize that we might not be the best fit for conventional retailers. We might be better for more like premium. And so it allowed me to like refocus and figure out maybe strategize into food service and so I think that it wasn't a lost cause. I know a lot of founders have mixed feelings about brokers. Again, when the time is right, try it, interview. There's a ton of them. Naturally, Chicago has a lot of networks with them. But we did it for about 9 months, and we figured out that we wanted to bring it in-house and focus in a different direction of the business.
So basically, what you said there, if I'm is you gave something a try, you took a look at it, and you said, okay, I need to reevaluate whether I need to be doing this or not.
Yep.
And no one can really sell.
Brilliant.
Exact. I did the same thing, Teresa, and ultimately stopped using one as well. And I'm not saying this is scalable and you can't do it forever, but really at the beginning, especially, no one can sell like a founder. No one can sell like one of the first employee because we're living, eating, sleeping, breathing it. And I think with a broker, they work with so many brands. It's very hard for them to have that same, feeling for it or same ability to sell. And so at the beginning, I think being able to sell as a founder is such a leg up. And I would have done it differently for sure, but at least I knew when to call it a day. Thanks to Greg, helped me a little bit with that situation too. So yeah.
Yeah, and once again, back to my Frontier experience, for us, brokers were critical. We had, once we got to the point where we were ready to go national, we wouldn't have been able to do it with our skeleton team without having a team out there to do it. So there is a right time for that as you get into it. Frank, any other practical tips for you on from an interviewing standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, there's of course a lot, but I think some of the more obvious things that I of course didn't mention are we're here to help kind of pressure test the scope of any role right before you say, hey, I'm ready to hire, and think about defining what those outcomes are before you get resumes. So helping you strategically think through that is what recruiters are really good at and should be really good at, and all the other things that come with that, thinking about compensation and help you guide through that. And again, thinking through what's going to make the most sense for you, hourly, fractional. I think we talked a little bit about Teresa about it's really important to find the right person. And it really is, of course, right? Culture and partnerships are really important, but there's also an element where, some you have to really have good role definition too, right? So sometimes mistakes are happened by not hiring the right person into the right role. So I think a lot of times we help founders really slow down to really think about how to hire intentionally, especially you talked about cash is tight. You want to hire the right person, the right time, the right seat. So there's just so much that goes into it. But yeah, it's a little bit additional on top there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. One of the things that we were pretty big readers, and there's a book, it's pretty old now, I think, by Street and Smart called Who, about kind of the process, structured questions, and then, specific questions about the role. And then, Erica, a lot to your point, always take them out to dinner to make sure that there's a fit there. So, hiring it's hard and it takes a lot of time. Even if you have a recruiter, you're still going to have 5 candidates that you need to spend, first 5 hours with. And then the next interview is going to be 3 hours, because you've whittled it from 5 to 3. And then, for the last two, it's going to be 2 dinners. It's a lot, it's an investment, even if you are lucky enough to find, creative alignments to help you out to get to that point in time. One of the other questions that we had got was around how should we think about people who come up and say, "Hey, I'd like to work with you, free labor or family labor." Erica, this is a question I think that you kind of brought up. How should we be thinking? How should brands be thinking about that?
I mean, you get what you pay for. So, that is true. However, at a scrappy startup, who's to turn down free support? And so I just think you have to strike the right balance and make sure expectations are set at the beginning because I have done that before and you recognize that they have other responsibilities, whether it's family, other businesses, other jobs. And if you go in thinking, okay, they're going to be running all of my books, they're going to be doing all of my forecasting and all of my budgeting and all of this, that's not realistic. But if that's what you're thinking and then they don't do it, you're disappointed. So make sure to have that conversation up front. What is that expectation? I mean, also, you're going to be able, some people don't want to take money. They really do want to support, and you can offer that and they might still say no. And if that's the case, I just think, there should be alignment and a conversation up front to set expectations properly. But again, our size and stage, it's hard to turn down someone who really does want to help support. And so there are ways to compensate also, think about your advisory board. Are you compensating your advisory board with equity? Like, what can you do? And I try to show my gratitude, through other ways because they are not comfortable taking money, right? But also there's a time where I've had to cut it off and just say, this feels like it's a lot for you. And I don't want this to go sour. I want you to continue supporting us in other ways, but I don't think that this is working the way that we wanted it to because our expectations are different. And then I was also going to say, Greg, about the hiring. What is that expression? It's like hire slow, fire fast too. So it's like, you should really be able to tell moderately soon, and Frank, maybe you speak to this, if someone's working out, because you don't want to drag it along and drag it along if they end up not being that culture fit, Greg, or they don't end up, maybe they, amped up their resume. I don't know. So, if it's not working, move on quickly.
Teresa, any thoughts on that? You've hired a lot more people than any of us here, with the exception of Frank, probably.
Yeah, I remember one year I had like a big stack of W-2s, which I think it was a big stack to me. It probably wasn't a big stack. I have a funny story. I hope my mom's not listening. So, again, when I first started, my mom is a CPA. She was a CFO of a company. And, I was like, I'll have my mom do my books, and my taxes at the end of the year. Well, because I had my mom do it, I am the last person to do it. And so I'd be like, in October, like extensions happen. I'm like, hey, you're gonna do my taxes. And it got to point that I was like, I need to hire someone to do it so I can close my books like before the next year starts. And so again, my mom knows not the business taxes change every year. And it's very anyway, so I ended up hiring an accountant that was familiar more with the business law taxes in Chicago and Illinois, and he ended up saving me quite a couple of $1,000s. No offense to my mom, it's just that like he knew all the regulations and stuff like that, and I got my books done faster. So again, you get what you pay for when it's free. You may not be the priority, and so I would say again, as scrappy founders, you're gonna maybe use it, but then at some point when it's hindering your growth, you need to figure out maybe you need to have that talk about if you want them on full time or more hours, or you find someone else that actually can do that and help you grow that type of part of your business.
Great. Frank, anything to add there?
No, I think that's all pretty good. Again, everything comes down to where you're at in your business, what you need, and to make quick decisions when you need to make them.
Outstanding. Bob, I'm going to let you come back in and make a couple of naturally Chicago announcements. Once again, if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A. We've got a couple here, but if anyone has additional questions, please add them to the Q&A for us.
Thanks, Greg. And if you're an awesome brand like Globowl and Sugar Bliss, we invite you to join Naturally Chicago as a brand member. You get free and discounted online programs, live events, members-only events and programs, peer engagement across the natural products industry, and curated introductions to leading retailers. And all this for just $500 a year. and you get to work a lot with Greg Keller, which is the best part. Our next webinar is on Tuesday, February 24th, and about the same time, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., and it's called Wellness is Evolving and AI is Reshaping Discovery. Brand and product discovery used to be about placement, shelf position, keyword rank, influencer reach, but wellness shoppers increasingly want personalized answers. What works for my body, my goals, my constraints. AI is becoming an interface for those answers sitting between brands and consumers. The following panel of experts will discuss how wellness is evolving, how AI is changing and aiding discovery, and what brands can do right now to stay findable, credible, and chosen. Tracy Hollema, founder and CEO of Creekside Ventures, Kitty Cloak, senior manager of Spins, and Shiv Gupta, founder of U of Digital, and the panel will be moderated by Katie Rochalt, managing director of Society USA. And if you're going to Expo West, join Naturally Chicago and 3 fellow Naturally Chicago chapters for the Midwest and Mountain Mingle, Thursday, March 5th, 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time at the Anaheim Convention Center. We're collaborating with Naturally Network chapters in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Colorado for the can't miss event of Expo West. And if you go to our upcoming events page, you can find both of these events, and you can also find information on how to become a sponsor of the Expo West party. Finally, coming soon, next week we'll kick off the countdown to our biggest annual event, the Naturally Rising Pitch Event and Forum, which will be held in downtown Chicago on May 27th. And we'll be opening registration for our next morning mingle on March 10th at Chicago French Market. In this networking event, we'll have a short program to discuss why you should participate in the pitch event. Back to you, Greg.
Thanks so much. So one of the questions we received was around strategies to find fractional management. How did you find the fractional CFOs and marketing people? And then that's question A, and then B, how do you figure out what to pay those members of your team?
I can go. I mean, I think I think a lot of us hate the word networking, but the fact is, it's being a part of your community. Okay. So networking, community building, whatever you want to call it, is how I've met literally everyone I've worked with, except that one woman who reached out blindly to me. But almost every single person that has come my way or helped and supported in some way was a recommendation. And I was just trying to write in the chat, but it won't let me. I can only write to host, but joining the Naturally Network was the single most important decision I made at the beginning of my business because I knew nothing about CPG. I knew a lot about food, but absolutely nothing about CPG. And it was a lot of, I met a lot of people through the Naturally Network, and there's others, of course. And I did other programs and things, the Target Accelerator program and others. But the power of our community and the kindness of the CPG business, I feel CPG community in general, or the willingness to help, I should say, is very, very strong. And so I would just say, make sure you go to these coffees, make sure and again, they don't have to be through Naturally only. There's so many times that I get notes. It's like this CPG dinner and this, that, and the other thing. And even some of your, this is something I just thought of right now, but your bail people, right? Like Teresa mentioned at the very beginning, those people are very well connected. Our lawyer, and I work with multiple ones, and you'll have to probably too, whether it's FDA, whether it's trademark, et cetera. But they know so many people just in their client base, and they make a lot of connections for you. So don't hesitate in asking your lawyer or your accountant for referrals or recommendations, and continue growing your community in that way. But for sure, networking and meeting people, and whether you like it or not, or going out in the cold and you don't want another cup of coffee or another drink, but it's really important.
Teresa, Frank, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think LinkedIn, both Eric and we post a lot. And then people start following you, and then that's how my fractional COO found us. I also networked with a friend, and when she was she was working with a fractional CMO, I looked at all their people and then found that one of them actually had worked at General Mills. So again, it's LinkedIn is a great resource. Networking, again, use your bail team. My lawyer, they are very well connected with other founders. In one of them is in the airline industry, and we've been trying to get in there. So you just never know, besides your next key person, but other opportunities too.
Great. Frank?
Yeah, I mean I mean, no better way to put it than from two, business owners who've gone out there and done it. But yeah, obviously as a recruiting firm, we can help in that manner, whether it's just introductions. We work with a ton of different fractional individuals and businesses because we support earlier stage brands quite a bit. So we have a lot of people that we can certainly make introductions to if needed.
So I want to ask, there was another question asked around hiring, the culture hiring. How do you figure out who's the right cultural fit for you? I mean, it's hard over a cup of coffee. Like, so what are other things, other strategies to help us figure out who these people that are going to be real contributing members to our team are going to be?
When I first started hiring the fractional CFO, again, this is, my first really leadership position. You don't want to give all your secrets, so make sure you have an NDA in place. I've had founders, even with investor decks, they give someone that they think is an investor, but it isn't, it's a competitor. Anyways, sign an NDA, have a contract. It will protect you. You will sleep better at night. Have that bail person, the lawyer, look over that contract, even though it costs you a couple $100 or whatever. Um, Again, it's worth it. You just don't ever want to get into a dispute later on if they help with some kind of IP, whatever. Um, so yeah, I would definitely say do a trial basis. Like when I first hired my fractional CFO, it was I think 3 months or 6 months. And we were paying a monthly, consulting fee. Again, it doesn't break the bank. Make sure your cash flow can support it. But then, don't sign a 1 year or 2 year or what, I, again, I still own 100% of my company, so I have not given any equity. Again, I would say I would not give out equity first until you see if that person has been on your team for over a year. You can always say there's a possibility. But again, as you give equity away, you can't get it back. So yeah, I'm really cautious about who I hire. Again, having other people interview in different ways, in-person interview, have your COO, have a pastry chef. They will all see different parts of this person to see if they're the right fit.
Teresa, that's such a good point. I actually have used some of my mentors and advisory board members to interview people in the past because they may get a very different sense. Sometimes you like someone so much personally, but they don't really know how to do the job, right? So, again, there does have to be that culture fit, but ultimately they have to have the chops to do it as well. And so having someone else come in and, be objective is, I think, so smart. And I had never done that before in any other business. So that's a great piece of advice.
The only other thing I'll add specifically around sales and salespeople is when you're out at trade shows, as you walk around to other booths, there are some people that are just going to jump off the shelf and say, wow. And you're unlikely to be able to hire that person, but understanding her qualities so that you can, when you're interviewing for a job like that, you know, that's really critical. And then, kind of the last thing around that is the whole networking thing. It really is critical, regardless of where you are. There are people that have done that before and ask questions. And, the reason why, I've been in this business for way too long. But the reason why I like it is almost everybody that we meet, they're wonderful people. They want to talk, they want to help, they want you to succeed. We want you to succeed. And asking questions, being involved is really the key way you know, get people that are going to help you to succeed. And that's really the goal. We all want to succeed. People want you to succeed. Nobody's rooting against you. It's just one of the beautiful parts of this industry. So, hey, as we close out around this, Frank, why don't you lead us? You came in last. Why don't you lead us off with kind of, any last minute thoughts around hiring and getting it right?
Yeah, I got to put a quick probe in on culture though, real quick.
Please.
Just as a business who really leans on it for our team and how important culture is to creative alignments. And we have a really long tenured staff of recruiters, which just isn't that commonplace, sadly, in our industry. It's important for you as owners in your business to also show up in that front, right? From a culture perspective and really let candidates see and feel who you are as a founder and as a business and how you're going to help shape their career too, right? So of course you got to bring in the right people and make sure they fit with you, but you also have to put your best foot forward as a business because it's really important because there's a lot of opportunities out there, and you want to make sure that you stand out and culture is so important in bringing in the right talent. I would say just as kind of a thinking about hiring and your teams, especially for emerging businesses. Everything is built in layers. Like you don't have to do everything at once, right? So you don't go from founder to a full exec team overnight, or a full team altogether overnight. You layer capability, you layer capacity, and it's I think important to really keep grounded in that, right? So think about doing things intentionally, and think about how to go about hiring those individuals in the right manner. And you'll be set.
Fantastic. Teresa?
Yeah, I mean, I think, kind of summarizing like, when to hire a contractor or broker full-time. Like when I look at contractor or fractional, that's when you need like a specific expertise or you have a limited budget. A broker, that's when you need access to relationships, with retailers. And then full-time is when the work is ongoing or core to your business. That's when you need to hire that full-time person.
Eric, any final thoughts from you?
You make sure your cash flow is pretty stable before bringing on especially high ticket employees that cost more than maybe is comfortable for you. So just make sure you're in a position of comfort and stability, if there is such a thing, before making that hire, because that's a terrible position to be in. So
Yeah. The only thing I'll add to this, this is a webinar on hiring the right people. We've all done it, but we've all screwed up also. And getting bad people out quickly could be among the number one pieces of advice. And we talked a lot more about this on our pre-call. But the times that we were disappointed with ourselves at Frontera is when we had a person who was poisoning the entire team and we didn't get rid of them fast enough. And, that may be the only other thing. So with that, hey, thank you all for joining us. Teresa, Erica, Frank, thank you so much. Bob, thanks for introducing us graciously.
Yeah,
And
Greg,
thanks for being part of Naturally Chicago.
Greg, before we go, I got something from
Oh,
Frank. From Mary Tarchinsky in the chat feed. I just worked with Creative Alignments for a VP marketing hire at my nonprofit client, and they did a great job at a very reasonable cost. I thought that might be a good way to sign off. Last word.
indeed, it will be.
Thanks,
So,
Mary.
thanks, everyone. Enjoy
Thank you.
the rest of your week and weekend. Thanks. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much,
Bye-bye.
guys. Good job.